Last year, as I was doing full-time vocations work, I was driving around the diocese a lot. And so I decided that I should probably try to put that time in the car to good use. And so I started listening to audiobooks on the presidents. So I began with George Washington and made my way through Thomas Jefferson, and then there wasn't an audiobook on the next one, so I kind of dropped it. But the one on Thomas Jefferson had a line in it that just stuck in my head, and I just can't get it out of my head, and I think it's very fitting for this celebration of Corpus Christi. So the author is talking about how Thomas Jefferson had people over to the White House very frequently for dinner parties. And he says that, it was natural to him to do this growing up with the Southern hospitality of the Virginia life that he knew. And he said there was, of course, a more immediate point to frequent gatherings of lawmakers, diplomats, and cabinet officers at the president's table. It tends to be more difficult to oppose or at least to vilify someone with whom you have broken bread and drank wine. Caricatures crack as courses are served. Imagine demonic plots fade with dessert. And so I think that with everything going on in our world, that this quote is especially fitting for us today. What can this quote teach us about life, about being a human being, and more so to our point about the Eucharist? The first thing that it can teach us is that eating is at the core of who we are. Something that's essential to us as human beings, right? We can't live without eating. We need food. We need sustenance. We need energy. And so we have to eat. And I think we in South Louisiana know this, right? Everything that we do revolves around food. It never ceases to amaze me that we'll be sitting around the table enjoying a meal, talking about some of the favorite meals we've eaten in the past, and thinking about what we're going to eat next time. And that we have to have food in our lives. It's essential to our lives. And and doing it well is essential to our way of life. Right? People look at this part of the country, they say a lot of things about us, but one of the things that they have the best food. Right? It brings us together, the fact that we have this delicious food. Another thing that this quote sort of brings out is that when we're hungry, it's very hard for us to be kind. In fact, in recent years, the term hangry has become popular. When you're so hungry that you get angry. Right? That we need food in order to just be kind to people. Right? In fact, I didn't think of this till now, but I had an experience in an exam one time. So in seminary, we had oral exams. So you sat through class the whole semester, maybe paid attention, maybe didn't, and then your entire grade depended on a 10-minute conversation with your professor. It's not the most relaxing situation. And I took one of my exams with my professor, and it was my last year, I didn't really care at this point. I passed, so I was fine with it. But he called me and said, Father, I was thinking about it, and I think I was unfair to you. You were the last exam right before lunch. I was hungry, my blood sugar was low, and I think I was a little harder on you than I should have been. He was hangry. Right? He wouldn't have said it, but he was. Right? He was hungry, and so he wasn't able to think straight. He wasn't able to be kind. And so eating eases that tension and helps us to relax. Right? It helps us to be more forgiving. The third thing that we can get from this quote about food, about eating, is that eating is not meant to be done alone. Right? That we can sort of think of a number of activities in our lives that are okay to do alone and sometimes are desirable to do alone. Right? I really don't have a whole lot of problem not being around people. That's okay for me. But eating alone is just so difficult. Right? If you go to a restaurant and you see someone eating alone, you feel sorry for the person. Right? You want them to have some company. And so eating is something that we are meant to do together. Right? Good meals, truly good meals, are made better by good company, by good conversation. Right? The meal, in a sense, is a means to that company and that conversation. So why do I bring all of this up? I bring it up because there's a lot of tension in the world today. Right? There's political tension, there's racial tension, there's economic tension, there's all this stuff that is going on. And people are just wound up tight. Right? And people on both sides of whatever argument it is are blaming the other ones for ruining everything. Right? The world's falling apart and it's their fault. And then they're on that side going, the world's falling apart and it's their fault. Right? And hopefully we're trying to be somewhere in the middle. But the point is that we need to eat together. We need to share food together in order to hear the other person, in order to encounter the other person, and be able to get a glimpse into their point of view. Right? Maybe we aren't as focused on this, but I know a lot of people live their life on the computer. Right? Reading every comment or tweet or whatever it is that someone puts up on social media or on, a news story or whatever. And they just lose their minds, right? I've had to tell people in the confessional a number of times, just stop looking at the internet, stop watching the news. Right? Get off of that. That's not encountering a person. Because what do we normally do? We normally find the things that support our argument anyway, and get all worked up about the people on the other side. Or we read the stuff about the people on the other side and say, gosh, they're so stupid, how could they possibly think that way? They're ruining everything. It doesn't help anything. And so we need to get off of this social, virtual reality that we sort of create, and we need to actually encounter and talk to real people. Right? Real people. We need to share a meal. We need to sit down and enjoy each other's company. Right? Because, as that quote says, it's much more difficult to oppose or at least to vilify someone with whom you've broken bread and drank wine. Right? We might leave the table or the conversation and still be as far apart as we possibly could be. But at least we're not going to hate the person. And we're not going to say that they're the devil because they think the opposite of us. Right? We'll see them as a human being, and hopefully they'll see us as a human being, and we'll be able to respect one another. And maybe, this is a straight, crazy idea, I know, but maybe we might find out that we are wrong about something. It's never happened to me, but maybe it'll happen to you, right? We might actually find out that we're not right about something. Or we don't have the whole thing correct. Right? And so we need to have that time to be able to sit down with people and talk to them. And I can say this because some of my best friends have some ideas that I find completely ridiculous. We could not be, well, we probably could be farther apart, but we have pretty different ideas about certain things. But I love them. And I love spending time with them. And we're able to have discussions. And I need those people in my life. Because I can get stuck in my own ways, and hearing their different opinion makes me say, oh man, I never thought of that before. They have a point. Maybe I need to be a little easier on this. And so we need to have those tough conversations. I'm bringing it back to today's feast of Corpus Christi. If souls are hungry, if our souls are starving for the bread of life, then we're going to be angry. We're going to be unkind. We're going to say nasty things about people. And so we need to come often to the table of the Lord. We need to share in this supernatural food and this supernatural drink. And allow the Lord to fill us up. Allow the Lord to remind us that we're one body. Right? That we're brothers and sisters in the Lord, even if we have different opinions. So if regular bread and wine can ease the tensions between political rivals or whatever they may be, imagine what a meal of the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ can do. Imagine the tensions that can dispel. Imagine the differences that can wash away, or at least help us to live in peace amongst the difference. Now, if you want to see a beautiful film that portrays this is way out of my normal interest of movies, right? I like stupid comedies, right? The dumber, the better. But this movie is very serious. It's in a foreign language, so you have to read the subtitles. It's completely out of my comfort zone, but it's wonderful. It's called Babette's Feast. I'm not going to tell you all about it because I'm talking too long already, but it's this French woman that has to go away and live with some Dutch sisters. And they don't know this, but she's a world-renowned chef. And she ends up cooking this amazing meal for them. And it heals a lot that has been going on in this little town that they live. And so one author writing about the movie says this. He says, the beauty of the film is found in watching as the conspiracy of silence melts away in the enjoyment of the feast. It's in the enjoyment of the meal that they're able to begin to enjoy each other's company. They're able to begin to talk and reconcile differences that they've had. And so the beauty of the Eucharist is found in how hatred melts away as we come more and more to enjoy this divine, this sacred feast.